Well, hello everybody. This is David Trigg, your anxiety mentor. And in this video, I want to help you come up with a plan so that you can overcome anxiety, so that you can live the life that you want to live and learn the tools that you need in order to overcome your fear and your anxiety. And so I actually have two graphics that I've put together through years of experience and counseling and learning from some of the best mentors available that I think will help you understand what happens in your body, in your mind, in your spirit when you're in that anxiety cycle or in that pattern of anxiety. And then I have a second graphic or a second slide that I think will help you understand how to have a new plan, how to have a different approach to your mind so that you can find grace and you can lower your anxiety and eventually overcome your anxiety. So the first slide is what I call the familiar pattern. And as you can see, it has three corners, the triangle. And it starts on the bottom with the word trigger. On the top, it says fire, fire. And on the other corner, it says act out. So let me explain that and break that down. First of all, what happens to the anxious person is there's a trigger. There's something in your situation, in your circumstances, that sparks or starts the cycle of anxiety. Then that goes into a second place, which is this response that tells your body to fight or to flight, or what I like to call fire, fire, danger, danger. It's that idea that there is something that has been triggered in your mind, and now your body is in a full-on alert. And so that's when people get the heart palpitations, or the sweaty palms, or they get very sad or depressed, or they don't want to go out and get out of bed in the morning. And then the third element of the familiar pattern is what's called acting out. And that's usually the active part or the inactive part of anxiety. For some people, it looks like anger. They act out in anger and lashing out to those that they love. For other people, it looks like they stay in bed, as I said, and they can't go to work. They don't want to call people back. They don't interact with the real world. For other people, it could be that they get very low and depressed, and they lose sight of their goals and of their dreams, and they can't do the activities that they used to do, so they hide, they isolate. And then that leads back to the beginning, back to the trigger. So in other words, these three things, they feed each other. And then the person, in a matter of seconds, milliseconds, is found in this endless cycle of anxiety, or what we call a panic attack, or an anxiety attack. And this might be very familiar to most of you. You probably can put yourself in that story, in this familiar pattern, where you can see how maybe if you're someone who has lost someone, maybe the trigger is the past, something in your past, something in your childhood, some trauma that took place, and for no apparent reason. And this is a very key moment. It's not because you're even thinking about the loss that you had. For no apparent reason, that trigger comes into your mind. And this is, again, something that I do want to pause and explain. Maybe if you're someone who's not an anxious type, we often hear from people, just don't worry. It'll be okay. Pray. God is good. Of course God is good. And of course we should not worry. And of course that's what the Bible tells us, to not worry. But the thing that you have to understand, and we understand as people of anxiety, is that those triggers are rooted in trauma. They're not rooted in our circumstances. It's not because we can't pay our bills. That might be the actual thing that's happening now, but that event of today is triggering something in our past. Loneliness, shame, abuse, violence. That trigger, again, as I mentioned earlier, it goes into this place of fire, fire, where our brain is just catastrophizing. It's telling itself the worst. So back to my example, If, let's say, that young lady was abused when she was young, or maybe that now she's an adult, then what the fire looks like is they are now catastrophizing with their own child. They're now thinking and imagining the worst, that their own child is also going to be abused at Knott's Berry Farm or at the supermarket or at school. And they only can see the worst possible scenario. And then the acting out. They worry, they pace, they drive to school, they don't want to leave the child unattended. They call the school principal 5-8 times a day. They control the situation. They do whatever it takes to make sure that that child is safe. And to the person in the anxiety mode or in that pattern, these things almost seem normal. Often they would say, well, this is what a parent does. We take care of our children. And who can deny that? But for the anxious person, that pattern is actually damaging them. It's actually causing them danger. It's causing them harm because they are unable to ever be satisfied. It's never enough. They can never get out of that cycle because, again, it's feeding itself. Now, what is then the second pattern? Or what is it that we as anxiety mentors try to help people do when that first pattern is in motion? That is what I call the new pattern. And the new pattern goes something like this. It starts with awareness. Then it goes to the second corner, which is calming the feeling down. And then third is having a plan. And then again, that feeds into itself, back into awareness, up into calming the feeling down, back down into having a plan, and then continuing to do that new pattern until the person is out of that anxiety mode, or what I like to call brain lock. So let's start with the first one, which is awareness. Awareness is everything to the anxious person, and that's what's lost during a panic attack. But awareness looks something like this. Oh, I'm feeling anxious. Oh, the anxiety monster has walked into the room. Wait a minute. I think this is the beginning of my anxiety pattern. Do you see the power in that? Do you see the power in being able to self-analyze and to become aware of the fact that that anxiety person or that anxiety feeling is suddenly here? It wasn't here 5 minutes ago. It wasn't here 10 minutes ago. And it's different than feeling anxious. It's being able to, again, through this new pattern and the tools that we talk about and your own strength and your own education, your own practice, is being able to say, this is what's happening to me. And I would say 99% of the healing and of becoming a person of grace amidst anxiety and being able to overcome anxiety comes from this first step of being aware. So the minute that you're aware, you now trigger the rest of this new pattern, which is the second, is to calm the feeling down. Calming the feeling down is being able to understand, again, your brain. The back of your brain is saying, fire, fire, fire. Calming the feeling down are phrases or knowledge or resources that wake up the frontal part of your brain, the rational side of your brain, the logic center, the frontal lobe, which during panic attacks and times of anxiety are completely turned off because, again, your brain is sending all kinds of signals and endorphins and all kinds of chemicals into your body to get it ready to fight or to run away, to flight. And so that second step is being able to calm the feeling down by saying it's just a feeling, by using catchphrases such as, I'm going to be okay. It's just a feeling. And then being able to tell yourself, this makes sense. That phrase is very powerful because it connects you back to awareness and back to your past. So in other words, for that person who was abused as a child, who's now anxious because of their own kid being in school alone. That second step looks like, oh, I'm being anxious because that happened to me. That makes sense. Now I understand why I'm in this place, is because that is my trigger. It's using phrases and knowledge and tools with which you're fighting. You are fighting against anxiety. This is not for the faint of heart, and that's why many people live in anxiety and cannot overcome anxiety. They don't have the right tools. But as you practice this, I know that you will be able to find peace for your anxiety. So you calm the feeling down. And you do this over and over again. Telling yourself the truth. Having a phrase such as, it's just a feeling. It's a very strong feeling, but it's just a feeling. It will pass. And then the third step is very important, which is to have a specific plan or tools. And I specifically want to recommend a few tools. One is what I mentioned, is a saying. Second is to make sure that you're breathing. Third is to distract. And lastly is to connect. I hope that understanding these two patterns can give you a glimpse into the journey of grace, to be able to find joy and grace amidst your anxiety. I would love to sit down with you and go deeper into these two patterns. But I really hope that just in this brief video that you at least have the understanding of what it is that you're going through and how to overcome anxiety and develop new patterns. Thanks so much for watching. Please get a hold of me through this YouTube channel. Subscribe to my newsletter every week at davidtrigg.com. Thanks so much for watching.